Okay, it's been a while since I recorded a long form video, but I do have something to speak about today. Initially, I wanted to talk about it also in a shorter form because I thought it will just reach a wider amount of audience. But then I thought that there's too much to be said about this. So let's try a longer form video, slightly longish. There is this term in psychology, it's known as foreshortened future. So, just by the term, you can understand that the future is foreshortened. Where is it foreshortened? Not in real life, but in our imagination. So, basically, I cannot imagine a version of myself in the longer future. Perhaps up until October this year, or perhaps next year, or the next 5 years, or the next 10 years, my brain is when it is incapable of generating an image or a version of myself in the future which is sustainable and it makes sense for me so that I can follow it. Why does this happen? Why does some people's brain become incapable of truly imagining themselves in the future? Um, the causes range from depression to trauma, PTSD, CPTSD, some form of mental illness. Why it came to me was because around the time I lived with chronic depression. And we forget one of the very basic concepts in life, that time, experiential time, is not an objective truth. It's a subjective reality. So sometimes days feel short, and sometimes some weeks just seem to pass by like this. And sometimes you can't go through a single evening and you need to go grab some alcohol or some food or something to distract yourself. Experiential time is subjective, it's not objective, and anything that messes up your brain chemistry is going to also, as a result, mess up how you process time. And one of the sneakiest ways that I have seen depression and chronic stress and chronic fatigue affect people's lives is that their sense of time is changed in very unhealthy ways because they do not process time in the way that a baseline healthy mind is supposed to process. They are also unable to see the time in the future. Now, I will tell you, we don't notice it when we are living very normal lives. But a lot of the very normal things that a human being does on a day to day basis, for example, planning finances, planning your schedule, planning vacations, right? Planning family time, going to a gym and imagining a certain physique, perhaps a more muscular, a more toned physique, and imagining a version of yourself in the future with that physique, and therefore going to the gym each day and working for it. These are all very normal things that we do, and we are able to do them because we can imagine ourselves in the future. Does that mean that we are 100% sure that we are going to live up until October or next year or wherever? No. Every human being understands and knows that tomorrow is not guaranteed to any of us. Even with that knowledge that tomorrow is not guaranteed, your brain can still see that planning a future and being able to see a vision of yourself in your head in the future is the only way you are going to propel yourself. You're going to have a direction in life, to something to achieve, right? These are very normal things, and you don't realize how much they rely on you being able to process time in a healthy way and imagine yourself in the future. I turned 30 recently, and I had these elaborate plans about how I want my next 4 years to be, my next 10 years to be, if I reach the age of 60, how I would like to feel when I look back at life. And none of these things mean that I have everything written down, because I understand I will change as a person. And I also don't know if I have time until 60. I may not. However, it's the natural function of a time. It believes in continuity. Although continuity is not guaranteed, you act as if it is guaranteed, and you plan your life. And you plan your vacations, you plan your diet, you plan your money. And also, a lot of the less obvious things become possible when your brain is able to process the concepts of time and continuity in a normal way. For example, you don't stay around negative or toxic friendships. You don't stay around relationships which make you doubt yourself or which make you feel less. You don't stay around relationships or friendships that do not involve reciprocity, which just depend on you to show up, and the other person does the bare minimum of responding to be polite. The better your ability to process time, the less time you have to waste on things such as these. Because you can foresee yourself in the future, you can see the impact of these collective decisions that your future self is going to live. If I waste 5 years of my life on completely non reciprocal friendships, not only is the version of myself after 5 years absolutely drained and bitter and exhausted and heartbroken, I have also taken away from myself the opportunity, I have deprived myself of the opportunity to have memories that I could have had in these 5 years, experiences that I could have had in these 5 years. So it's a total net loss. And my brain is today capable of processing these things. And between in my early 20s and my late teens, I was basically living with chronic depression and anxiety that comes as a result of this depression, because you don't really understand what is happening with you, and you still have to keep showing up and keep going. So I think a lot of the times there is comorbidity in cases of depression and anxiety. Not always is this the case, but a lot of the times, because you there is a certain base level of depression you feel, and you feel like you don't really understand what's going on with you, and you still have to keep showing up. I was a university student in USA, and I was always working. For most of my 20s I have worked along with like the university. I was working sometimes 25-30 hours a week. There was no option for me to sit back and kind of ponder over life and over what's actually happening to me. And that thing, because you're dealing with something so heavy that you don't understand, but you still can't really stop, that brings up the anxiety. So you are basically working in this constant state of fight and flight. And if I tell you the decisions that I have made throughout that time and how much less sense they make from the perspective of a person today, not just because I'm greater in age, not just because I'm older, that's one of the reasons, obviously, but also because I was dealing with chronic depression. I had, I remember for years, I simply did not have the ability to look at myself in the future. Not in a romantic or poetic way, not in a metaphorical way. No, I genuinely could not create an image of myself 2 years down the line or like 6 months down the line. And because that ability of the brain has been disturbed, it has been cut, you are unable to plan. I just calculated, I asked ChatGPT to tell me if I had just started investing like 100 or $150 max a month when I was 19 or 18, because that's around the age I started working. Only 100 to $150, not a lot, per month I have invested. How much would that be today? And she said that it would be like 12,000 or 13,000 or something. Now, is it a life changing amount? No. but is it a solid amount to have as your backup fund in case there is a sudden change in your life? Fuck yes. This is basically 3 to 4 months of your salary. So this is basically how much they ask you to save. And God knows how many times I have moved in these 10 years, and every time you move, it requires money. And each time I moved, I always had a financial crunch because I was never prepared. Even when I thought I was planning, my planning didn't really involve seeing a vision of myself in the future that I believed would exist, because I genuinely believed that before I hit the age of 30, something was going to take me out. And it's not like I was planning personally to harm myself, but I just could never realistically believe that I had a chance to reach the age of 30. And this is something that I have noticed in a lot of people, some who I have seen very closely, when they are living with this extreme cognitive load of chronic depression, they lose their ability to do the most basic planning, not because of lack of motivation. That may be one of the reasons, but a more major reason in my case at least was because I was always working. I was never lazy. I just could not imagine myself in the future. And because I could not imagine myself with the future, I didn't plan my money in the smartest way. Actually, I didn't plan it at all. Anytime I had over $600 to $700 in my account, for whatever reason, I felt like, okay, I now never have to think about money, because each time I felt like before this money ends, something will happen to me and it will take me out. It sounds very bizarre, but that is the mode that my brain was working on. I also made terrible decisions with relationships and friendships, because even though my needs were not being met and I was not feeling very happy, I just stuck around people who added nothing to my life. And then I understand today that there is a price to pay. Because 6, 7 years down the lane, when you look back at what you have done, all you see is loss, 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 loss. I lost this time. At that time, I didn't feel it. I just feel like, again, something will happen to me and this is all going to end. And if something is to happen to me in 2 months, I don't want to die friendless. So I would rather just keep these people around and hope that something will work out, rather than just cutting them off and dying. So, very weird way to think, I know, but this is just me saying that anything that alters your brain chemistry alters the way you process the most basic, the most fundamental things in your life. And these things then have such long standing repercussions that sometimes you ask yourself, but why is this person behaving? And this is especially for people who are surrounding somebody who's going through something, because I saw a lot of judgment. There was incredible amounts of judgment coming from people around me, and I always used to run. That was, it became kind of meditative for me, because otherwise I thought I would just lose control, whatever little control I felt over my life. But I could never like weightlift, because again, today I feel like it involves me creating a version in the future that is muscular, more toned, has more strength, and I didn't have that capacity. And I used to have so many people around me just questioning my life choices incessantly, nitpicking the most bizarre things. And I have seen that also with other people who are depressed or who are living with chronic depression or anxiety. They experience so much ridicule and so much judgment from people around them. And very often, such people also look like they are a bit unsure of themselves. And other people feel a lot more confident and emboldened in coming to you with their opinions of how you should live your life when they see that you're already unsure. If you look like a person who will not entertain unwarranted opinions, they tend to not take that much liberty with you. But I obviously looked very unsure. I was a young girl, I was depressed. And even with older people, I have seen sometimes when they are so depressed, they are very unsure, they are very bad at planning. So they will end up finishing tasks. If people are high functioning, they very often always they very often finish what they start. But a task that could take like 2 hours, they will take 15 hours to do it. So, and they will increase the work for themselves. And a lot of the times, these people are met with ridicule and aggression. Like, how dumb of you. I have, not personally me, but I have seen other people behave too in such a way. Like, don't you have common sense? You can just assign this. Why the fuck will you do it? There is a certain level of aggression that people around them show in treating with them. And looking back, this part kind of breaks my heart. If you are around somebody who you believe is struggling mentally in a way that you don't fully understand, and I don't judge you for not understanding. I was going through it and I didn't understand. I also went to therapy and I still didn't understand. And I read up about it quite a lot and I still didn't understand. It was going to take this amount of time. So if you don't understand it, I don't blame you at all. Zero blame, completely okay. However, I will very much blame you if you start ridiculing this person, bullying them, or showing aggression towards them, because they are not acting in ways that your mind deems acceptable. In that case, you're a fucking bully and you should back the fuck off. Because today, if I see a person struggling with depression being bullied by another asshole because he thinks he's too smart or he doesn't have enough patience, I will fucking step in and I will fight for that person. So, um, this is one of the ways depression is still, it's very much a mythical thing because it's like the mind trying to study the mind, and that makes it a bit more difficult to study. And I think we are not even in the initial stages because we don't really know what is happening. We can't really explain the experience of being in that zone, and therefore there is a lot of alienation that people who are depressed feel because there is no communication. Like, if I have an injury over my arm, or if I have a surgery which I am going to have in a month, I can physically tell people I'm going to have a surgery, and they are removing a cyst from my ovary, which is another thing that we should talk about, fibroids, in another video. But I can tell people I have a surgery and they will understand. Nobody understands what it means to be in this zone of mental dysfunction. We definitely need a lot more studying for that. And studying also will not change the fact that some people simply are born in very bad situations. And if you are a particular kind of a mind, born with a particular level of cruelty, that will most probably result in it. We need a lot more funding to go in this direction, but also we need public awareness. I do think that when you see a person struggling mentally, stop fucking being an asshole. Stop being an asshole. Stop bullying them. Stop talking to them condescendingly. I have seen men do this a lot. Men love. There's a reason mansplaining is a word. Stop doing all of this thing. Either provide a very harmless suggestion if you care, when you see that that person is in the right state of mind. Be tactful about what you have to say, or if you don't have the patience or you don't have the skill to be tactful when you are dealing with somebody who's already struggling, don't deal with them. Don't talk about that topic at all. Talk about oranges, talk about mangoes, talk about oat milk latte. Talk about neutral topics. Do not talk about how they should change their lives if you don't have the tact to speak about it. And do not bully people who you see are already struggling. It reveals nothing about them, it just reveals a whole lot about you. That is all I wanted to say. Thank you. And the term is foreshortened future. Read up about it.